Welcome back. My name is David Belcher. I'm the Community Manager here at Classical Guitar Corner, and I promised to give you an update on some of the gear that I used. In a previous video, we looked at my guitar support, and the strings that I used. Oh, I forgot to mention one thing. My guitar case. So, I use this Visisnut case. I have no idea if that's the correct way to pronounce that, but it is a beautiful case, hard shell with a wonderful sealed gasket, so it really keeps the humidity in quite well. It's strong. I really trust in its strength and support, so I can travel with it by air. It's a great case. All right, so in this video, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the things you don't see. So my lights, my microphones, my camera, and I'll show you some behind-the-scenes shots of each. Currently, this microphone is the one that I'm speaking into, and it's a great little microphone with one little drawback, but it's the Aputure A.Lav. Aputure as in A-P-U-T-U-R-E, not aperture, but Aputure. Aputure is a wonderful lighting company that also does some audio equipment as well, so audio visuals. And I actually have another Aputure light right here in front of me. This is my big kind of main key light, and this is an Aputure 120D. It's not a cheap light, it's pretty expensive, and I have a big soft box on the front of it called the light dome, and then it has this honeycomb grid on the front that keeps the light from spilling too much on the background, because I use another light behind me to color the background. So I'll come to each of those in a moment. First, the microphone. The microphone, the Aputure A.Lav, is fantastic because it has a really nice warm sound, and it picks up the instrument really well. Let me grab my guitar. So it has a really nice sound for the instrument as well. I really like that. It's able to kind of serve both functions of a vocal mic as well as an instrument mic, and they both blend together really well with this particular microphone. So great sound, very cheap. I can't remember how much I paid for this, and I don't know what they're going for at present. I'll put that in the description below. The only problem that I have with it, it does have a cord, so it's not wireless, so I have to kind of tuck it through my shirt and run it to my camera. And also, you know, if you have a long beard like I do, and everyone does, right? Then when I bend down, sometimes it gets in the microphone and causes that rustling sound. And then other times, if I have it too low, it will bang up against the side of the guitar and the sound gets muffled. Otherwise, wonderful lav mic. If you don't want to spend a bunch on a wireless microphone, this is a fantastic alternative. And then two more microphones you can't see that I use mainly for my performances are right in front here out of camera, and they're the MXL 606s. They're small condenser cardioid microphones, so they're kind of the pencil microphones. Fantastic, well-balanced sound. They don't introduce extra frequencies, very flat response with the frequencies. They're very cheap too. I think I paid $50, $60 each, so about $100 for the pair. And they sound fantastic and they're reliable. I've had them for at least 6 years at this point, so yeah, I love them. That's my main microphones. I do use another vocal microphone for doing voiceovers, and then I also use it for coaching calls and other live sessions at CGC Academy, and that's a Neat King B mic, which is wonderful, especially for the price. They're $150 and probably one of the best vocal mics you can get in that price range. Now, my main key light that I talked about is the Aputure 120D. It's a very powerful light, and with this softbox, it provides a nice, warm, soft light that isn't harsh and causes lots of shadows. I keep it just off to my side and above me, and that keeps a lot of the light off of the background. And the reason for that is I like to have color on the background. So I've painted my back wall the color of a background support paper So very common in photography is background paper, and a common color that's used is gray. And that gray is wonderful because you can change the color of the background with a lot of light. You can put a bunch of light on the background and make it white. You can move the subject far away from the background and try to prevent light from spilling on it to make it black. And then you can also add color. So for color, I use this GVM RGB light. And so I'll show you what that looks like. It adds a little bit of splash on the background, and then I can change the color by dialing this in here. And I usually keep it to that CGC blue on the background. So that's my second light. I only use that for color on the background. And then a third light that I use behind me, which is kind of my hair light. You're not gonna be able to see it in shot, so I'll have to show you a B-roll shot, is another Aputure light. And let me turn that one on so you see what that looks like. Okay, so that's the Aputure Amaran H198. That's a mouthful, right? And it adds just a little bit of light to separate this part of my body from the background. It's a nice little effect for hair and to provide some separation. That's a really cheap light. I've had those for probably 7 or 8 years now. I have 2 of them. They run on little Canon batteries. Fantastic lights, really good color. I love them. So that's my microphones and my lights. And then 2 more things that I use to make these videos. The first is the camera that I'm looking into right now. This is the Sony A6300, and I always use it with the built-in kit lens, which is the 16-50 kit lens. It's really wonderful. There's so many things I love about this camera. There are things I hate about this camera too, don't get me wrong. It's been updated a couple of times now, so Sony has put out more recent versions in the A6500, the A6600, and the A6400. Those are all newer versions of this particular camera. But this workhorse, it just does what it does. It has beautiful color rendition, very, very sharp, even with the kit lens. And it does what I need it to do, which is give me a nice, clear image that I can work with my software to process. So I do have a second camera off here to my left, which is for my right hand. That's a Nikon D800. And the difference between this camera and the Sony is that the Sony records in 4K resolution. And because of the bigger resolution, I can actually crop in on the image. I can zoom in on the image without losing resolution, because I usually put out videos at 1080p. So recording at 4K gives me about 2 times the room to zoom in on the image. Whereas with the Nikon, it's just focused on my right hand. I don't have to move it around at all. So it records in 1080p, and that's totally fine. It's a great camera. I use a 28mm vintage manual focus lens on that particular camera. And both are supported by tripods. I have a Benro and a Manfrotto. Great tripods. One thing I didn't mention is that I run my microphones, these MXL 606s, through an interface on my Macs, and the interface is a Motu M2 USB interface. And then I have a Mac Mini that I use for work with the new M1 chip. It's a fantastic computer. Before that, I've always been using my PC, which is a home-built PC, but the Mac is so powerful, wonderful machine. So that about wraps it up. That's my microphones, my lights, my cameras, and that covers pretty much everything that I need to film these videos. If you have any other questions about stuff that I use, or if you'd like to share what you use, if you have just questions about some of the gear, please let us know down in the comments below. All right, that about does it, and I'll see you next time.